Prentice Baines, please. Prentice Baines.
How long will it take the UK Tory government to come up with a Brexit plan?
How long? John Nicholson.
Well, they say repeatedly, we're not giving a running commentary. That's the cliche. And, of course, they're not giving a running commentary because they don't have a plan. And we know that. We know that because we had that leak from Whitehall this week, which reveals that we're going to have to hire thousands of extra civil servants to deliver this. We know that because of the plunging value of the pound, because of Brexit, the total amount that we are going to have to contribute next year is going to be vastly increased. And we've got the absurd side of the Foreign Secretary arguing with the Chancellor of the Exchequer and arguing with Theresa May. Now, Theresa May said quite publicly last year, and in private too, that there would be a huge outpouring of jobs from the UK if Brexit won. And I fear that that's what we're going to see. Well, we're in a phony war at the moment because people haven't quite
realised what they've done.
They haven't quite focused on the reality of what's about to happen.
But you know.
Can I finish my answer? Then you can come in and you can give your answer. Of course, people have an absolute right to vote whatever way they want. But what we're seeing, what we're going to see, is a loss of confidence. We're seeing a huge decrease in investment. Companies are scared of investing because of Brexit. Brexit is a mess. There's no coherent plan about Brexit, and the sooner Scotland gets out of this mess and forges our own way, the better for all of us.
I think it's going to take a very long time for any type of plan to emerge. I mean, first of all, it's important to remember that this referendum was foisted on the general public because of a factional split inside the Tory party. We then had the whole debate whipped into a frenzy by a rabidly right-wing press who made it about immigration. Then politicians who drove round in that Vote Leave bus are liars. They lied. They said 350 million. They lied. But now by their own admission, they lied. They said that £350 million a week that went to Europe would go into the NHS, and their lies are now unravelling. I think that there are legitimate criticisms to be made of the European Union. Right? But the fact of the matter is that the way that the referendum itself was conducted was disgraceful.
We've had approximately 300 years of a union. Britain has had, since 1973, a union. And we're given the right, with Article 50, to leave that union. Why haven't we got that with our union?
But you had a referendum on the very issue.
Right, yeah. No. We don't need a referendum. Article 50 can still be brought. So the scientists and the historians are all telling us from Arbroath what was written down then. We could, without any problem, bring Article 50.
But of course, Mrs Thatcher said that the election of a majority of SNP MPs to Westminster would give Scotland the moral right to independence. It's not something, obviously, that we now argue, but that was her position.
Exactly.
Is that your position?
No.
Yes.
I think everybody's focusing on the wrong thing with Brexit. People are focusing too much on the economy, and there is going to be a big economic downturn. The IPPR and IFS recently predicted that by the end of the decade, Scotland's block grant through the Barnett formula is going to suffer by £3.3 billion. My point actually was to start, if we come out of the EU, the first thing the Tories are going to do is rob you of your workers' rights, employment rights, human rights. We're going to go back to the workhouses.
Okay.
Hi. My question is, has Nicola Sturgeon overestimated her support in Scotland for another independence referendum?
So, do you think Nicola Sturgeon's overestimated her support for another one? Do you want another one?
Of course I want another one, because I want Scotland to be independent, and that obviously has to come through a referendum. So I do want a referendum. Look, everybody knows, you just have to listen to this audience. Everybody knows that Scotland is divided on the constitutional question. Some people mention independence, half the audience here cheer, the other half boo. It's a very contentious issue, but what is clear is the direction of travel in Scotland. You know, I remember when there was vigorous debates about Scottish devolution, and John Major, Prime Minister, predicted all sorts of disasters. I find it very difficult to meet anybody now who admits that they voted against Scottish devolution. And I think the direction of travel is obvious in Scotland too. To answer your question directly, I think the First Minister knows, obviously, what the state of play is in Scotland. And if there were another referendum today, it would be incredibly close. But I can tell you this. When I go around my constituency, East and Bartonshire, which voted quite heavily against independence, I talk to a number of business leaders who say that they were persuaded to vote against independence because they were promised that if they did so, Scotland would remain in the European Union. That promise is broken.
I understand that obviously this is a heated issue, but I think that the independence referendum, I thought it was a great thing. Like, up and down the country, people were engaging in politics. I thought it was a great thing. And what happened was, in Scotland, where we've traditionally been seen as having a really low voter turnout, over 90% of people turned out to vote. And for me, that proves that, see, when your vote actually matters, then we'll turn up in our millions to participate in deciding our futures.
What do you say? What do you say?
I did. I voted. I campaigned and voted. I campaigned and voted for yes.
I completely agree. This was set up to resolve internal Conservative Party issues. It was not something the country wanted. And the result, I think, is going to be disastrous for us.
Merryn,
not just Scotland, but England too.
Merryn, yes,
just back to the original question, the only reason Nicola Sturgeon said she would call a second referendum is if there was substantial change in our situation. Scotland being dragged out of the EU against their will is substantial.
You say no.
Remember, the Tory government said when they came to power in 2010 they were going to get rid of all the deficit by the end of that Parliament, by 2015. There's still a substantial deficit now, and by the end of the period that we're talking about, the government now expects that it'll be a £100 billion deficit, largely because of the increase that's happened because of Brexit. They haven't got an economic strategy for the country, and they haven't got a plan on Brexit.
Prediction.
Talking about what we were told about the referendum, and we shouldn't have another one because there's been no material changes. This is from you, sir. Just another one of the Tory lies. But in 2014, we were told in Stirling by a Tory Member of Parliament that there would be no change to our military situation in Scotland. 2 days ago in the Observer, well, 1 day ago actually, Wednesday, we find out that 1/5 of our military accoutrements in Scotland will disappear.
Right.
Who's been telling lies?
OK. Well, we can't go. Laura Bridges, please.
Both Donald Trump and Jeremy Corbyn are seen as anti-establishment figures. Can Corbyn win an election as Trump did?
Anti-establishment. Cat Boyd.
I think I'm probably the only person on the panel who is a supporter of Jeremy Corbyn. I'm not a member of the Labour Party, but I really like what he's got to say. I disagree with him. On independence. I think Jeremy Corbyn, you know, would be in with a chance if it wasn't for the disgraceful behaviour of the PLP, the fact that there's a media smear campaign against them, and the fact that the Tories have just recarved all the boundaries in terms of the constituencies. I think he's up against it. He's up against a rigged system. You know, I think the Labour Party was unelectable in Scotland a long time before Jeremy Corbyn came along.
Okay.
If you look at what's happened in the last 18 months, just 18 months, you know, the Tories were not meant to win a majority. I think you could get 8 to 1 the day before the election. Corbyn wasn't meant to win the first time round, Brexit wasn't meant to happen, and Trump was never going to be president. And all four of those things in 18 months have happened.
Well, here's one very big difference. Jeremy Corbyn is a decent man, and Trump is not. So I wish the Labour Party in England well, but as we know,
I wish the SNP well in England as well.
As we know, I mean, the Labour Party in Scotland, they're now incredibly divided. The SNP has largely replaced Labour in Scotland.
Question from Suzanne Stewart, please.
Post-truth has been named as Word of the Year. Is this a true reflection of modern politics?
Yeah, this will affect you all on the panel. Post-truth has been named as a Word of the Year by the Oxford Dictionary, which says it's avoiding objective facts in influencing public opinion and instead appealing to emotional and personal belief. You have to be brief on this. You start, Cat Boyd.
Yeah, it's a very strange concept. I mean, I think that, in a sense, we are post-truth because, you know, people like Donald Trump and Nigel Farage get to portray themselves as anti-establishment when clearly they are genuinely members of the establishment.
So it is a true reflection of modern politics, well, the idea that post-truth...
Yeah, but that politicians and activists appeal to the emotions of people using numbers that are kind of true but not completely true, that could be interpreted one way, could be interpreted another way. That's just the art of persuasion and politics. It's not
so
new.
post-truth shouldn't be Word of the Year. John Nicolson.
Absolutely not.
If you're a blue-collar car worker in Detroit and Donald Trump has promised you that he'll give you back your industry and your jobs, you're not going to be satisfied with post-truth. You're going to feel enormously betrayed. It's a terrible, cynical word. It's enormously depressing. I'm not cynical about politics. I think good people go into politics across all the parties because they believe in things. So I would like us to return to everybody trying to provide the truth, at least the truth as they see it.
OK. Chris Brown.
That would be post-truth.
My candidates for biggest post-truth element of the year were £350 million for the NHS written on the side of the bus.